Today, Travers Talks is interviewing Justin Michal, who is a Grayling-born Army veteran advocate, and doctoral researcher in conflict resolution, who is running as a Republican candidate in the 2026 race for Michigan's 1st Congressional District, challenging incumbent Representative Jack Bergman with a campaign centered on rural representation, veteran issues, and community engagement. So let's get into this thought-provoking interview with Jim Horn and our guest.
Well, Justin, welcome to Travers Talks, and it's great to have somebody running for office on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great, sir. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
It's good. Sometimes it's hard to get the quote, the politicians on the program, and I think it's really special when they come on. So let's start with a few questions. You're a Republican, and you're running to challenge Congressman Jack Bergman. He's been out there for several years. I don't know the exact number, but he's run for quite a few terms. And so you're going to primary him. And that's a big deal. And so what do you feel Jack's done wrong or not done at all?
I think one of the biggest concerns and challenges that our district faces with the congressman is his lack of presence. People really don't feel that he's in the community as much as he should be, especially as our representative. And with the things that are happening in Washington, D.C. and the pressures that are being put on our congressional district in particular, people want to see the congressman. They want to have conversations with the congressman. They want to have open dialogue and communication, and they don't feel that that is present. And everywhere that I seem to go in the district, this is a concern that comes up. And it's a statement that's loud, and it rings loud and clear in the messaging. And for that, I think that people, when they're not heard, it leads to other avenues of disdain or distrust. And I think that's where we're at.
Super. Bergman votes with the administration, I would say probably about 100% of the time. And when you look at the issue, and it's been bouncing around, talked about quite a bit, the national debt, federal spending, the national debt, I think we're right around $36 trillion right now.
39 roughly. But
39, yeah. God, I missed it. It keeps crawling up. Where are you on federal spending deficits in general? What are your thoughts?
I think they're a significant concern because they put a lot of pressure on the economy and the taxpayer. And we've consistently run debts now since the 2000s. I mean, the last time we had a balanced budget was under Bill Clinton. So when you're looking at a situation where government spending seems to be out of control, we're hurting. And if we don't get government spending under control and start really focusing on ways that we can cut programs effectively, we can look at some of the waste, fraud, and abuse, we're going to have a significant economic problem on our hands in this country. And that also stems into the de-dollarization globally. It's not just our economy and printing money. People look at that as a simplistic model of economics, but you have to look at our usage in the dollar internationally. And you have a lot of people that are de-dollarizing around the globe, people that were our assets and our allies. And when you see that, it puts a lot of strain and pressure on the trust that's in the dollar system that we currently have. You can see that in the petrodollar markets, especially in the Middle East, of people looking for alternative opportunities and options to the U.S. dollar in terms of commodities and trade. So there are a lot of things that we need to focus on. Spending is absolutely one of those things. And right now, with a lot of the government entitlement programs, we have a lot on our books that we have to cover. And those aren't appropriated spends. Those are actually spends that are required by law to be paid. Our healthcare system is one of them. We're spending $1.7 trillion a year in healthcare. That's going to bump up to $2 trillion. The military, we're almost at $1 trillion. Debt on our services is at $1 trillion a year. And when your taxable revenue stream isn't matching that number and you're running a $1.7 to $2 trillion deficit a year, that's a problem. and we need to get that under control. And those are really difficult conversations to have and really difficult situations to implement, especially when you're talking about legislation. That's not going to be done. I was going to say that's not going to be done partisanly. That has to be done bipartisanly. We have to have those conversations, and we have to have some tough decisions. And you've got to be willing to come to the table on both sides to make that happen.
Yeah, that's the deficit spending is a very important topic, and unfortunately, the younger people in this country are going to have to pay off the interest on that debt. And consequently, that's going to be difficult in years to come. We're sort of burdening them with that. Let's talk a little bit about, I've got a little bit of a clip here, and I want you to listen to it. It's Senator Tillis from North Carolina. This was about 3 or 4 days ago, and she was discussing things with Kristi Noem. You may or may not have heard that interview, but more importantly, forget about how he feels about Kristi, because I know Kristi's gone now. He talks about immigration, and he talks about quality versus quantity. So why don't I get this up here on screen?
I've been critical of Secretary Noem because I don't think we're focusing on, we have limited resources. ICE can't be everywhere at once. So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? At the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers. We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day, because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters.
So Tillis is obviously, he's ranting and raving, and he's not running again, so maybe that's why he's doing that. But more importantly, where are you on the immigration issue? There's been a lot of controversy on ICE in particular. A lot of controversy, as Tillis mentioned, about the fact that we're picking people off the street, maybe that we shouldn't be picking off the street. We should be looking for the quality deportations rather than the quantity. Excuse me. What are your thoughts, Justin?
Well, I think one of the arguments that we need to focus at first is understanding that without secure borders, without borders in general, and without the enforcement of immigration policy, we don't have a country. Any country that exists because it has borders and it protects those borders. But I think that one of the main focus points is we can detain and deport with dignity. One of the biggest messages that we were looking at is we wanted the people who were either undocumented or here with criminal records to be detained and deported to make our country better and safe. And I don't think that there's anyone in this country that believes in border security that doesn't think that we should have safety and sovereignty within our borders. Obviously, there's concerns about the way that people are being detained. We've seen videos and there's been a lot of rhetoric around the treatment of individuals in that process. And I think that that's something we have to look into. We've got to give Customs and Border Protection and ICE the ability to do their jobs and enforce the laws that we have on the books. And it's unfortunate, some of the circumstances that have happened. Obviously, my heart goes out to the families that are impacted by that. But again, we've got to really look at how we enforce our laws. We can do that with dignity, and we can look for avenues or legislation or appropriations that can help create better opportunities for law enforcement to get better training and really support the efforts in a way that is dignified and allows us to work in avenues that we feel are American based. And I don't mean that by saying, Americans only. What I mean is we've always been the beacon of hope, and we've always been the light for this world. And I think that this gives us an opportunity to really show that in our treatment of individuals, especially during the deportation process.
Super. You're a veteran. I've got kids that are veterans, and one is over the Middle East now. Unfortunately, it's a tough war. What's been confusing for the American people, at least it's confused me. I'm not quite sure what the deal is going on. I've heard contradictory statements. I've heard, they talked about regime change. They've talked about, I think just the president just recently talked about unconditional surrender sometime this morning. They've talked about, doing this for the Israelis. And so it's very conflicting. Obviously, we all support our troops over there regardless. What are your general thoughts about the war, how quickly it should end, and what might be the best objective?
This has been a really difficult question to answer, mainly because of the limited amount of information that we get as the public. Right? There's a lot of opinion pieces that are out there. Most of our media sources are opinion based now. A lot of them have agendas that are outside the normal realm. They cater to their certain listeners and certain demographics, certain individuals that they're trying to target. And I think that when we're limited in those perspectives, a lot of narratives can be drawn. And it's unfortunate that we're not privy to the intelligence reports that are coming or the White House security briefings, but there's an obvious understanding as to why the general public doesn't get those briefings. So when it comes to the war in Iran, if there is a security threat, which the government has come out and said that we're under the threat of a imminent attack from Iran, then the war in Iran is justified because we're protecting national security interests. But as the war progresses and different narratives come out and the White House pivots or changes their stance, or the Secretary of War changes their stance or positioning, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult to justify. We obviously understand that the Iranian regime was not a good regime. We've seen them sponsor terrorism, no issues. So you're in a situation where you've seen that the regime torture and harm their own population. And again, as I said earlier in your show, we've always been the beacon of hope, and we've kind of been the world police in that regard. And we made the decision to go into Iran, and that was, as we've been told so far, based on our security analysis of the situation and what we deem to be an imminent threat. And again, as the war prolongs, it's going to be more and more difficult to justify if we're not gaining ground or coming to some kind of idea of what resolve looks like. And if they keep moving the goalposts on that, it's going to be a little bit harder for us to defend on the campaign trail, mainly because it seems to be one of those conflicts where people are torn as to whether they want to support it or don't want to support it.
Let's get to the economy in rural Michigan. I had a young gentleman on early this week, Evan Carlson. We talked about job opportunities for younger people. Evan's, I believe, 22 or 23. But young people are leaving the rural parts of northern Michigan due to job opportunities and the housing costs. What is your specific economic development plan? What do you think ought to be done for the smaller communities outside Traverse City?
As we analyze this question, so the economy is very difficult. We're facing certain factors, at least what's coming into the economy with the development of AI, that is going to change the way that employment and economics is being delivered as a whole in our country. There are some reports that say within the next 2 to 5 years, there could be a 30 to 50% reduction in the labor force. And that's unfortunate, especially for areas like ours that are already struggling to maintain jobs. We've had a mass exodus of the youth because of job opportunities and cost of living in this area. And I think that when you're looking at that, people say, what's your plan? Our communities are going to have to get really heavily involved in trying to create environments and spaces that want or attract the younger generations to either stay or be able to afford to stay. And that currently isn't what local communities are doing. You've had a mass exodus because of opportunities, but at the same time, access to capital has become more difficult. The opportunity to save money to be able to purchase homes have become more difficult. You have a lot of strain because of ecotourism, especially in certain areas like Traverse City, Harbor Springs, Charlevoix, Petoskey. Marquette's experiencing that now. And then you have some of the remnants from the closures of some of the manufacturing jobs that are still present, especially in the east side of the state from the 2008 crash. So it's very difficult to determine, one, how AI is going to impact jobs all throughout the United States, but it's also hard to determine how you're going to either change regulations to make it easier for capital investments and for younger people to get, entrepreneur-based businesses started in our small communities. And it's also going to be a challenge as we move forward to figure out how our communities are going to adapt to these changes.
Final question.
Okay.
You're probably wiping the sweat off your brow. No, you're not.
Not at all.
Not at all. Your governing style. You see yourself running as a disruptor, a coalition builder, or something else. Give voters a clear picture how you would operate differently in Washington compared to Jack Bergman.
Well, my campaign slogan is bridging the divides. And I have gone out and continuously shown that I'm willing to speak to anybody in our district that has ideas and solutions that can help improve not only our district, but our country. And I think that this is something that's different right now in politics. We have the polarized left and the polarized right, and we're really struggling to come together as not only families, but also communities in our country. And my leadership style, people ask me all the time, what's your policy on this? What's your policy on that? And for me, it's not really my policies that matter. I have my values and my core value structure that I was raised with and my conservative values that I adhere to. But I'm really concerned about what matters to the voter and the constituent. And I really want to be there to support them and their views and their positions. That's what representation is about. So I'm definitely a listening leader. I'm someone that reaches out in the community and wants to get their advice and their input, because I feel that government shouldn't be the ones that are making decisions for people. It should be people making decisions for the government. And I think that that's the biggest difference. I want local communities to have the autonomy to make decisions. And I want to be able to support them in those decision-making processes by giving them the information and the tools necessary to make those decisions in an informed way.
Super. Justin, it's been great having you on the program. And I'm glad you've talked about some very serious policy issues. And I'm sure the people listening to these, to the conversation here are going to get a better idea of where Justin Michal stands on the issues that are really important to people today, whether it's Iran or it's the immigration or it's the federal debt, or even, what are we going to do with the economy in rural Michigan? That's obviously very, very important, especially to the people in the UP and to the younger generation. Justin, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's really been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, sir, for having me. I really appreciate being here.